Yes, sir. We can start now, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the introduction to life and breath.
Good morning.
May I request all of you to keep your microphones on mute. You can keep your videos on. Not an issue with the videos, but microphone only. If you have something to say, please unmute, speak, and after you have finished speaking, you can mute your microphone. I would also request all of you to please type your name, telephone number, and email address so that if there is a need to contact you, we will be able to contact you. So in the chat window, there is a chat window available to you. You can type your name, telephone number, and email. So, welcome once again. Namaste. My name is Praveen Mankar. I am a pharmacist and an industrial consultant by profession. I started learning this science in the year 2005. I became a basic course teacher in 2011. I this science from 2011. I qualified as an advanced course teacher in 2017 and have conducted 3 courses of advanced course. And we started training aspiring teachers 19. So our first batch of teachers is now ready to the same program. So that's me. Basically, those are my contact details. That's my number and my email address for you in case you need to get in touch with me anytime in the future. Pratibin Charitable Trust was formed in 2018. So we are a very young organization, and the objective primarily was to impart this knowledge of life and breath to the community at large worldwide. The second objective of Pratibin Charitable Trust is to participate in charitable activity for the downtrodden, and we have put in a little bit of our share out in the community as far as assistance to certain calamity-stricken people. Like we contributed to the Kerala flood relief, we contributed to Sangli flood relief, we rehabilitated 53 families in Sangli, providing them with the entire kitchen utensils. We are now constructing some houses for the devastation that was caused in Raigad district in the recent cyclone. We have also been assisting people during the COVID pandemic, assisting some migrant laborers with food provisions, transportation facilities. We have also participated with the Lions Club to organize provisions for monthly supplies to the dabbawalas who are completely out of employment since people have not been going to offices, the train services are disrupted. So a little bit of charity work is happening through Pratibin Charitable Trust. That's the trust office at Andheri East MIDC, and you will eventually the trust is also into. So let's come to the subject proper. The subject is about your life, and the introduction to this program, Life and Breath, is essentially talking about how to deal with life in general. Let's take the example of blood transfusion. Here is a patient requiring blood, and he gets blood from a donor whose identity he doesn't know. The guy who is wanting blood is unconscious, he's not aware of his surroundings, and he has been given blood by a person whose identity is not known to this patient, obviously. But the blood groups match, and eventually, over a period of time, this man recovers fully and he's up and about. Now, while he is unconscious and while he's under medical treatment, he accepts the blood without any questions. But the minute he becomes conscious of his surroundings, and he becomes conscious of the differences. This story I am narrating is a real life incident that happened where this guy was in Europe and he practiced a particular faith, a particular religion. And the donor obviously belonged to another faith. But since the blood group matched, the blood was accepted and the patient revived. When the patient becomes conscious, then he has certain do's and don'ts. Oh, I am a pure Jain. I don't take non-vegetarian food. Now, this is not the real story. I'm just giving you situations. I am a pure Jain. I don't take non-vegetarian food. But the donor was a European and he was a complete non-vegetarian. He would eat chicken, he would eat eggs, he would eat meat, beef, pork, everything. So the blood that went into this Jain body comes from who consumes any type of food. When this man becomes conscious, he does not like to deal with people or sit at the same table where the non-vegetarian food is served. But when he is unconscious, he is ready to receive blood from a person whose blood has been formed by consuming the same non-vegetarian stuff which in my consciousness I reject. The true story is about different religion and different faith. I am just giving you an example of a Jain and a non-Jain, just for you to understand that while we are unconscious, the universe does not differentiate you with any other human being, and every human being is simply identified by matching the blood group, and that is acceptable when you are unconscious. The minute you become conscious, the same human being who donated blood doesn't become acceptable to you because of a different practice or a lifestyle which he practices. So keep this at the back of your mind when we talk of life and breath. Now let's look at the human body. Whether you are in America or in Asia or in Australia, Africa or Europe, the human body structure is the same. You have the head at the top and the feet at the bottom. You have two arms, you have two legs, and you have different organs in almost identical places in every human body anywhere on earth. Whether you are a black man or a white man, the human body, whether you are rich or poor, literate, illiterate, Christian, Muslim, short, tall, thin, fat, civilized, uncivilized, Punjabi, Malayali, man or a woman, adult or a child, old or young, able, disabled, clean, dirty, healthy, unhealthy, fit, unfit, violent, calm, right, wrong, you still have one human body which also has a mind and an energy. For absence of a scientific terminology for energy, we call it life force or prana shakti. Any human body anywhere in the world is made up of these three components. There is some material called the body, there is a mind, and there is energy. We all are given a body, mind, and energy. So there are, as far as the human construction is concerned, the differences are all in the mind. The differences are all in the society. I have highlighted some differences alongside this picture. So when you talk of the human being, you are essentially talking of the body, the mind, and the energy. Everyone wants to be healthy, everyone wants to be successful, and everyone wants to be happy. There is nobody, I'm sure none of you sitting out there want to be unhealthy, unsuccessful, and unhappy. Everyone wants to be healthy, successful, and happy. And we are all in search of all these basic three things in life. So let's see what is life. We all hear quite commonly that it is a matter of life and death. So if you want to understand life, life is best understood when we compare the living with the dead. So let's have a comparison of the dead versus the living. So when you say, I'm looking at a dead body, what are the symptoms I'm looking at? I see that the dead body does not perform any actions. I also see that there are no involuntary movements in a dead body. And I also see that the dead body shows no breathing. The chest is not heaving, nothing. So there are no actions, there are no movements, and there is no breathing. And that's why I say the person is dead. let's go to the next level. The man is in coma, alive but comatose. So what symptoms do I see? I don't see him performing any actions. I don't see him moving, but I do see the chest heaving and the breath is going on. So the person is breathing, alive but comatose and breathing. The next stage is he's alive but sleeping. And the symptoms that I see, I don't see him taking any actions, but I do see movement and I do see breathing. I go to the next level, alive and wakeful. Now I see him taking voluntary actions. Of course, there are involuntary movements. And yes, he is breathing. So if you compare the dead versus the living, the essential factor that differentiates them is no breathing versus breathing. If you look at the living component, everywhere he is breathing. And if you look at the dead person, he is not breathing. So this is the essential difference between the dead and the living. So if I make a statement that life is breath or breath is life, then it wouldn't be an exaggeration. Since the difference between life and death is breath, we can say that life is breath or breath is life. Having accepted this, we all want to live, but we don't want to be in coma. None of you would like to spend their life in a comatose condition. That's not life. I'm living, but that's not life. A very unfortunate situation for the racing world champion Michael Schumacher to be in coma for the last 8 years. He's alive, but I'm sure, given the choice, he wouldn't like to be in the state he is in right now. We don't want to be sleeping all the time. Yeah, we may be working very hard during the day and over a number of years, and sometimes we might want rest. And we might even express that, saying that, oh, I don't want to do anything but just sleep. But that's not true. I don't want to sleep. I want to do things besides sleeping. So occasionally sleeping is fine, but I don't want to be spending my entire life just sleeping. And I don't merely want to breathe. Yes, everybody breathes. I also breathe. So what's so great about breathing? That life is much more than breathing. I want to be in action because action defines my life. For a cricketer, his actions as a cricketer defines his life as a cricketer. For a chartered accountant, his actions as a chartered accountant defines his life. An engineer defines his life as an engineer. So also a doctor. So also an artist. Any profession. Their actions define their lives. So we all want to be in action because action is also life. And action defines life. Action is the expression of life. I express my life as a pharmacist through the actions that I take as a pharmacist. You express your life according to your skill sets and knowledge sets. So we all express life according to our own specialities. Action is life. We take simple actions and we take complex actions. And simple actions are breathing, eating and drinking, walking, talking, cleaning, dressing, sleeping, hearing and seeing, touching and feeling. And these actions anybody and everybody can take. The complex actions are thinking, teaching, healing, discovering, managing, planning, organizing, monitoring, controlling. So these are some specialized actions, complex actions which require a little bit of knowledge, education, training. So we take also complex actions. And all these actions collectively define our lives. And we have been given an instrument for expression, and that instrument to perform the actions is our body and mind. What is this instrument made up of? If you look, it is made up of systems. Systems such as the circulatory system, digestive system, nervous system, and so on. And the systems are made up of organs such as lungs, heart, brain, stomach, liver, kidneys, and so on. So every system is made up of different specialized organ, and every organ is made up of cells, and every cell is made up of atoms. So if you break down the structure in the body, you can go down to different levels. Each system is specialized to do specialized functions. It has a specialized structure. Similarly, every organ has a specialized structure and a specialized function. Pancreas is designed to create insulin. Insulin cannot be created in the heart or the brain. You have a specialized organ structured differently, performing a special function. Similarly, every cell is a special cell. The blood cells do a special function. The blood cells are designed specifically. The brain cells will not do the function of the blood cells. The skin cells will not do the function of the lung cells. So all cells are specially designed and they have a pre-designated function. But if you go to the final analysis and you break down every cell to an atomic level, then every atom is made up of protons and electrons. So every cell in our body is at the base level as far as the scientific understanding is concerned, is made up of atoms, protons and electrons. And therefore, they are identical in nature. Every atom and every proton is identical in nature. So our basic structure is protons and electrons. And imagine the amount of potential nuclear energy that each one of us possesses with knowledge that I am made up of such a powerful nuclear energy. Then mind is made up of conscious mind. When I am aware of some things, then it is my conscious mind that is in action. And when I am unaware of certain things, but they exist, then it is my subconscious mind. I'm not aware what is going on, but it is there. For example, right now, you are paying attention to what I'm speaking. So you are aware of my voice and the words that are coming out of my mouth. At the same time, in the background, there might be a hiss of the air conditioner or the fan, ceiling fan. That sound is falling on your ear. Now you have become aware of it because I am talking about it. Till then, the sound was entering your ear, your subconscious mind was picking it up, but your consciousness was not tuned to that hiss of the air conditioner or the fan. And then there is a subtle energy inside us, because without that energy, I am nobody. I introduced myself as Praveen Mankar, and you have accepted me as Praveen Mankar because of the energy inside me. The day this energy leaves my body, they will address me as Praveen Mankar. They will say, body ko uthao, body ko jalao, body ko dafnao, whatever. I will be addressed merely as a body. I get my identity as long as this prana energy is inside my body. In life, we all have problems. And at the physical level, I have listed some common ailments: cough, cold, fever, stomach ailments, itches and rashes, headache, anemia, anorexia, sleep, lack of sleep, aging, listlessness. These are common problems which many of us face on and off during our lifetime. There are complex problems of physical health too. Heart disease, arthritis, diabetes, cancer. These are the high level or high ended diseases that some of us have gone through. Now, whenever I have a physical condition, it generally starts with some home remedy. I try to heal some home remedy. And when that home remedy does not succeed, then I seek assistance from a medical practitioner or a hospital, and they prescribe some medicines. I go to a chemist, I get those medicines and hope to get healed. I have the facility of treating my physical ailment. But when it comes to mental diseases, like I'm scared of certain things, or I'm nervous about certain things, or I'm hesitant about certain things, I'm angry about certain things, I sulk about certain things, I have complexes, inferiority complex, superiority complex, I'm unhappy about certain things. These are mental diseases. But I have never gone to a doctor asking for treatment against, let's say, anger. I have not heard of people going to a medical practitioner and saying, Doctor, I get angry very often. Do you have a medicine for anger? I have not seen anybody coming to a chemist shop. Incidentally, I own a chemist shop, so I have not seen anybody in my last 25 years of running a chemist shop coming to my shop and asking me for a medicine against I'm feeling unhappy. So do you have a medicine for unhappiness? Do you have a syrup for unhappiness? So we don't treat our mental diseases. We live with our diseases from the time we have become aware in life till today without making any attempt to treat these diseases. All this leads to depletion in our professional and personal performance. Naturally, if I am physically unfit, then my focus has shifted. For example, I'm sitting in my office and I'm trying to take out a file from one of the drawers in my desk cabinet. And if I bend to the left, suddenly I get a sharp pain in my hip. And my entire focus shifts from the file to the pain in my hip. And I may still remove the file from the cabinet and put it on my table and attempt to, but I will be conscious of that pain in my hip and I will be worried that something has gone wrong and I need to address that pain. So since my attention is now divided between the file and the pain, I am not fully focused or concentrated on the job at hand, and it depletes my professional performance, which gets reflected in my appraisal. So if I am a constantly physically challenged person through some ailment, my mind is divided between my physical ailment and the work in hand, and naturally the full focus, attention, concentration that my job requires is not given, and therefore I suffer professionally. The same person walks back home with pain in his hip and he is greeted by his family. He is in no mood for light mood banter. So he, out of irritation, says, "Get lost, I am not feeling all right. My hip is paining. Don't disturb me." So it affects personal relationships also. So when you have physical ailments, it will affect your personal relationship as well as your professional performance. And the same is true as far as mental afflictions are concerned. You came angry from the office because your boss fired you or ill-treated you. And that anger is simmering inside you, and you are greeted by your wife as you enter the flat, and you brush her aside very brusquely and say, "Don't irritate me, I'm already in a very foul mood." And she says, "What have I done? I mean, it's your boss who fired you, and why are you getting angry with me unnecessarily?" So your mental state of negativity also affects your personal as well as professional performance. And these are the things which are happening on an ongoing basis in our life. And therefore we are facing on and off different types of hurdles. Some are tiny hurdles and some are very big hurdles. And we sometimes feel that I don't know how to deal with this hurdle. So the important question is, do we take care of our body and mind? And many of you will answer no. Many of you will say yes. Many of you will say I don't know. And many of you will say not enough. And all answers are correct. Do you take care of your body and mind? If you have said no, you are right. You already know that you are not taking enough care of your body and mind. So you say, no, I'm not taking care of my body and mind. Some will say yes. So they might be thinking that they are taking good care of their body and mind. And some will say, I really honestly don't know whether I'm taking care of my body or my mind. And some will say, yes, I do take care, but I know it's not enough. And all answers are correct from your perspective. When I say disease, disease is a word made up of two words. It is dis and ease. When I'm not at ease, I have a disease. When I'm not at ease at the physical level, I have a disease at the physical level. When I'm not at ease at the mental level, I have a mental disease. I don't call it a mental disease, but it is a disease. I'm not at ease when I'm angry. So anger is a mental disease. I'm not at ease when I'm hurt and I'm feeling weepy. So unhappiness, sorrow is also a mental disease. I am jealous about somebody else. Bala teri kameez mere kameez se safed kaise? I am jealous about somebody else having something. It's a disease. I'm not at ease that somebody is better than me in some aspect of life. So I am not at ease with that condition. So I have a disease. And I really don't know whether I have addressed these diseases adequately or not, both at the physical level, the body level, and at the mental level. How many of you, now here is a question which might appear stupid to you, so I'm cautioning you before I go ahead with the question. How many of you clean your pancreas, liver, spleen, brain, heart, joints, and so on? And I'm sure some of you will wonder, कि ये क्या पागल जैसा सवाल पूछता है? How can I clean my pancreas? Many of you will not even know the exact location of your pancreas. Where is the pancreas? You will know approximately somewhere in the stomach region, but where exactly? You don't know. Most of us know where the brain is or the heart is. But where is that spleen? Is there an organ called a spleen? Some of you might even wonder. Is there an organ called spleen? And here is this guy asking us a question. How many of you clean your pancreas? Is he crazy? Pancreas is not like my teeth that I can brush it. But then give it a thought. You are so careful of your external appearances. You are so careful of your skin. You clean your skin every day. You clean your eyes. You clean your nose. You clean your teeth. You clean your tongue. You clean your ears. You clean your nails. What about these organs that are inside your body and they are working relentlessly for you 24/7? And you don't pay attention to them at all. A, you don't even know that they exist till a doctor tells you. And B, even if you know that they exist, you do nothing to do a maintenance job on these organs which are working throughout and relentlessly for you. So here is something that you need to ponder about. Now let's come to the basic subject that we are talking of. We are talking of life and breath and breathing. So let's see whether we breathe correctly. Do we breathe correctly? And again, the same answers will come. Some will say no, some will say yes, some will say I don't know, and some will say not enough. And again, all answers are right from your perspective. But the truth of breath is that we have never been taught to breathe correctly. We have acquired degrees. We have gone to schools. We have gone to different levels. Junior KG, senior KG, primary school, secondary school. We have gone to junior college. We have gone to degree college. We have some of us have been postgraduates and some of us are even PhDs, higher education, management studies. With all these qualifications in our kitty, none of the institutes taught us how to breathe. Some of you have later on joined yoga classes and somewhere you have learned pranayam and some other breathing exercises. And some of you have probably seen Baba Ramdev on TV and tried to copy his breathing techniques. So you have some knowledge about breath, but you don't really know what is breath and how much should we breathe. How much do we breathe? I don't really know. What is my lung capacity? I don't know. How much of that lung capacity I am using? I don't really know. How much should I be using? Nobody ever told me. So these are some common questions about that primary subject introduced to as soon as we were born. The day we were born, we started breathing. And yet, that first subject that we were introduced to in life has never been formally taught to any one of us. And that is such a tragedy. How much should we breathe? Unfortunately, I don't know. Nobody ever told me how much should I breathe. Nobody has ever measured it for me. Unless I have some lung condition like an interstitial lung disease or lung fibrosis or asthma, and then I am supposed to take a PFT, pulmonary function test, and then I come to know what is my lung capacity and how much it should be when my pulmonologist informs me about these things. Till then, I am not aware. As a common man with no lung problem, I will never know how much I should breathe and how much I am breathing. I have never bothered to find out. Why should we breathe well? Obviously, logical question. Take the example of a key. I have a key in my pocket and a duplicate is hanging on a nail in my house. The difference between the two keys is the key in my pocket is continuously shining because I am using it every day. The key that is hanging on the nail in my house has gathered rust because it is not in use. So this is the law of nature. Anything that is not put to use degenerates and ultimately crumbles. Take another example. Look at the railway lines. The railway lines on which the trains are constantly plying are always shiny. But the railway lines where the trains have stopped plying eventually become rusty, crumble, and degenerate. You look at bridges which have been constructed and constantly in use are in a state of upkeep and maintenance. Bridges that are not constantly used crumble and collapse. This is a law of the universe that if you don't keep your parts in motion or in action, they will eventually crumble and degenerate and die. How much of we use? Now this is a medical fact. All adults in the entire world, and I'm not talking of the Indian population, I'm talking of the world population. The medical fact says that we use only 10% of our lung capacity. So if I am using only 10% of my lung capacity, what's happening with 90% lung capacity? My lungs are used. 90% of my lungs are not used, and if we go back to the law of the usage, then anything that is not used eventually crumbles, disintegrates, and dies. Unfortunate, but take the example of a normal respiratory rate for adults. Now, different websites will give you different figures, and it doesn't matter. They are more or less in a logical range. Normal respiratory rate for adults is 12 to 20 breaths per minute as per one website. But look at these facts. The newborn or the infant up to 6 months old has a respiratory rate of 30 to 60 breaths per minute as compared to the 12 to 20 breaths per minute of adults. Now this website is saying 8 to 16 breaths per minute for an adult. So what happened between the newborn and the adult? How come the breathing has reduced so drastically between the newborn and the adult? Sometimes an uninitiated father would be looking at his newborn child and see his chest heaving rapidly, and that's a very scary sight, and he might call the doctor and say, doctor, come, something is wrong with my child, look at the way he's breathing, his breath is very deep and rapid, something is wrong with my child, please do something. The doctor will come, have a look, and he will smile and say, oh, it's okay, don't worry, it's fine. He smiles because he knows that you don't know what an infant breathes like. Imagine that infant could talk on the day he was born to the doctor and say, look at my father, he's not breathing properly. Because the infant is designed to use his lung capacity fully. As we start growing up and as we start neglecting this concept of breath, we take it for granted that whatever we breathe is adequate and enough. And that is where the problem lies. And our breathing capacity slowly starts reducing, and then it starts reflecting in our life. How does it reflect in our life? It reflects in our life in the form of, I start gasping as I start growing older. I cannot run as fast as I used to when I was in school. I can't climb up the stairs as I used to when I was a young man. Today, if there is no lift in a building, I will think twice before visiting somebody in that building. Oh, your lift is not working. Okay, some other day I will come back. Please excuse me. Sorry. I will avoid going to a building which does not have a lift, a functional lift. What happened to the same person who as a child would run up and down a 10-storied building in the May vacation playing Chor Police, Pakada Pakdi and all those kind of games without thinking twice? Yes, even in that age, we would get tired, we would gasp for breath, we would knock on somebody's flat and say, Auntie, Auntie, give me a glass of water, drink water, and I'm ready to run again up and down. Today, going up once is enough for the day. Forget up and down 2-3 times in a day. So what changed between that energetic young child and today's man? His lungs changed. His supported his physical activity when he was a child. Today, his lungs are not supporting his physical activity. The lung capacity has reduced because he did not pay attention to his lung capacity, because nobody taught him how to utilize his lung capacity. And therefore, everything associated with the utilization of lungs has collapsed. Now, here is a story about my house. I have a jar of chocolates, and we are about 5 members in the family. There is a rule in our family that after dinner, each one of us will consume one chocolate. It's compulsory. We are all sweet lovers and we enjoy chocolates. But we are also disciplined, and we take only one chocolate after dinner. But I also have a good habit. Returning from the market, and this is, I'm talking of pre-pandemic era when people were freely moving out, I used to buy 5 chocolates every day. So every day this jar got replenished with 5 chocolates. So necessarily this jar was always full. We never were short of chocolates in our house. The jar was always full. 5 chocolates consumed, 5 chocolates purchased. But there was a problem. And that problem was, these chocolates were never touched. Only the top layer was always consumed and replenished, and therefore the bottom layers were never touched. Eventually, the entire jar became rancid, putrefied, the chocolate spoiled, and all the chocolates had to be thrown away. Now, what is true of this story in my house about the jar of chocolates is true of your lungs. If 90% of your lungs you are not using, then eventually your lungs will get spoiled and they will stop functioning for you in your life. So, here is a picture, your lungs and your heart. On the top of the lungs, you will see a circle, jagged circle, green circle, which shows O. That is the air containing oxygen. So when you breathe, this oxygen comes into your lungs. How much you breathe is determined by the black blob that you see in your lungs. That is the amount of active participation of the lungs. Oxygen is coming in and the C is going out, which is carbon dioxide going out of your lungs. Where does the carbon dioxide come from? You will see a blue circle coming from the heart to the lungs. That blue circle denotes impurities, which the heart is pumping into your lungs. The impurities are collected by the blood from all over the body, from every organ that has been functioning in your body, brought to the heart, and it meets oxygen from the air, converts the oxygen, the impurity into carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide is thrown out of your system, thereby purifying your blood. The purified blood is shown in the form of a red circle returning to the heart, from where it returns to different parts of the body. What is the function of the blood? The function of the blood is twofold. One, collect the impurities from different organs of the body, bring them to the heart. Heart is a pump. It pumps the impure blood to the lungs to enable the lungs to burn the impurities. The oxygenated blood becomes pure blood and returns to the heart, and then the heart pumps this pure blood back to different organs, again for collection of impurities. But is that the only function of the blood? No, there is another function the blood does. The blood also collects nutrition from the stomach digested food and supplies nutrition to various organs in the body. So there are two functions the blood does: supplying nutrition to different organs in the body and collecting impurities from different organs in the body. And this activity is going on in perfect rhythm. Your pulse rate, normal pulse rate, it's 72 beats per minute. So 72 times in a minute, your blood is doing this job of nutrition and collection of impurities. As we grow older, we find breathing more and more difficult. We cannot run fast, we cannot climb stairs easily, we gasp for breath with a little exertion. Recovery time is longer than tiring time. As a child, I would play for 2 hours and get tired. I would rest and I am again ready to play for another hour or two. Today, I rest for 1 hour and I walk for 5 minutes. I get tired in 5 minutes and I take 1 hour to recover. What changed? What changed is simply my lungs. My lungs no longer support the purification rate at which it is required to be done, because nobody taught me how to increase my oxygen to improve the purification. Nobody taught me how to breathe. Compare this with our own youth. We could do all the activities quite easily. Our lungs have gone bad, and that is a serious conclusion. So let's look at an improved lung capacity. So you will see a larger quantity of oxygen entering into the lungs, and that is represented by a larger black blob inside the lungs as compared to the previous diagram. The black portion has increased. So that means I'm taking a lot more oxygen, which means I'm able to purify the blood in a more efficient manner. More impurities are being burnt, more carbon dioxide is being thrown out, and a richer, redder blood is going back to the heart for onward delivery to different organs, for better evacuation of the impurities from various organs. Now my blood is more purified, so it has an enhanced capacity of collecting more impurities from various organs in my body. What do lungs do? Lungs are the meeting point of blood and air. Blood comes from various organs of the body, pumped by the heart. Air comes from the atmosphere during the inhalation process of breathing. Lungs provide incinerators to burn impurities. Oxygen is used and carbon dioxide is exhaled out. So this is basically what the lungs are doing. Let's look at the mystery of breathing. Where does carbon dioxide come from? Oxygen comes from where? And it is chemical fire. Fire burns, and the product of burning is carbon dioxide if you are burning some organic impurity. What does oxygen from air burn in the blood? Impurities collected from various organs. What are these impurities? These impurities are the worn out tissues of the body because of the wear and tear due to the functioning of different organs in your body. Since they are all organic, they contain carbon, and therefore the end product of burning is carbon dioxide. What goes back to the heart is purified blood for onward pumping to the organs. In case of the respiration, blood acts as a municipal garbage vehicle. Why do I call it a municipal garbage vehicle? Simply because, like the municipality sends the garbage vehicle to my society, and my society produces 2 garbage cans or trash cans, every day 2 trash bins are emptied out into the municipal vehicle, and I am ready to throw garbage into those 2 trash bins. One day I receive a notice from the municipality that because of heavy workload, number of buildings in my locality have increased. Municipal vehicles are not sufficient to collect 2 garbage bins from every household. So we will collect only 1 garbage bin from the society. Imagine what will happen in my society. We are generating 2 garbage bins every day. Only 1 is being collected by the society. So over a period of a week, 7 garbage bins will accumulate in my society compound. Eventually, my compound will start smelling. Eventually, my compound will have rodents, rats, cockroaches, mosquitoes, flies, eventually bacteria, and slowly there will be disease spread in the society because of non-clearance of garbage. What happened in my society happens in my body because of non-clearance of garbage, because there is no oxygen to clear the garbage. The municipality has not sent enough vehicles to clear all the garbage that we are generating. Similarly, I have not supplied enough oxygen to clear all the garbage that my blood brings to my lungs. So look at this diagram. There is a nose on the left hand top, then there are a pair of lungs, then there is a heart in middle, and there is a body at the bottom. What does the body do? The body sends impure blood to the heart. From all the organs, it collects impure blood and sends to the heart. The heart sends the blood, impure blood, to the lungs. The air that comes in through my nose brings in the oxygen into my lungs. This oxygen enables the burning of impurities that are there in the blood that has been sent from the heart. That burning creates a byproduct called carbon dioxide, and that carbon dioxide is thrown out from my nose in the process of exhalation. So when I inhale, I bring in oxygen. When I exhale, I throw out carbon dioxide formed due to burning of impurities in my lungs. Because the impurities are burnt, the blood is purified and pure blood returns to my heart, and the heart does the job of pumping pure blood back to my organs in the body, and therefore all the organs in my body like the brain, heart, liver, stomach, kidneys, pancreas, bones, muscles are supplied with pure blood, with nutrition from the stomach and the ability to collect more garbage from all the organs. So more purification of the body. So as I increase my oxygen power, I'm increasing the burning of impurities, I'm increasing the purification of my blood, I'm increasing the purification of my organs, I'm increasing the purification of my whole body, and I'm reducing my chances of disease of the body. So here is a simple mechanism of prevention of disease. Why is blood a garbage vehicle? I already told you how the blood behaves like a municipal garbage collection van. Now let's look at the result of poor breathing. On the screen you will see two pipes. One is a red colored pipe and the other is a blue colored pipe. The red colored pipe denotes the blood vessel or the arteries or veins in which there are impurities. The veins bring the impure blood to the lungs. So this is a vein carrying all those impurities. Those silly looking smiley faces are impurities in the blood. In the blue tube, you will see 4 molecules of oxygen. That's how much oxygen I have breathed in through my normal breathing process. What happens when these molecules adjacent to the impurities through the two pipes come in contact? How do they come in contact? The tissue is so thin that there is a diffusion of the oxygen into the blood vessel, into the air, into the blood tube. There is a diffusion of air, and this oxygen will go into the vein and interact with those impurities and burn those impurities. Carbon dioxide will come back and carbon dioxide will go. Now you will see the same diagram but with reduced impurities. Those 4 impurity smiley faces have been destroyed by the oxygen. Oxygen is no longer there in the air tube. Carbon dioxide has been thrown out. But there are 5 impurities still there in the blood. They were not burned simply because I did not have enough oxygen to burn those impurities. What happens to these impurities? They go back into circulation in the body. Now imagine 72 times in a minute, this process of unburned impurities are going back to the body. So over a period of 1440 minutes in a day, imagine how many impurities are circulating back in the body. what happens to these impurities? They start depositing in the arteries and veins along the walls of the arteries and veins. They also deposit in the organs in which the blood is circulating. Over a period of number of years, your blood vessels, which is the arteries and veins, become thick with impurities. And eventually, this is the size of the diameter available for the flow of blood inside your arteries and veins, now clogged with impurities. This is what is called the block in your heart. Heart is a commonly known subject, that's why I'm talking heart, but this block is happening everywhere in your body. But since we are familiar with the heart, I'm talking of the heart. So the blood flow that is now supposed to go to your body in a particular quantity is substantially reduced because the diameter of your arteries and veins have reduced. Plus, when you pinch any pipe through which water is flowing, what happens to the flow of water? The flow of water goes in the form of a jet because there is now a pressure built up behind the water since you are allowing it to flow freely. The same thing is happening in your heart. Because you have pinched your arteries and veins, there is a pressure that is building up, and that pressure is reflecting on the heart, and now you have become a high BP patient. Simply because you did not burn the impurities, simply because you did not breathe enough oxygen, simply because nobody taught you how to breathe. So you must be wondering, is it so simple that simply by breathing I can improve my health? Yes, it is that simple. Unfortunately, human beings don't believe in simple things. They like complicated things. Human beings do not trust that life is very simple if we are disciplined enough to do certain simple things on a regular basis. We can avoid so many of our expenses if we can simply heal ourselves by breathing. So the blocks in the blood vessels is because of the impurities that pile up in various organs, and the organ failures and diseases start setting in. The impurities not only block your arteries and veins, they also block your organs like pancreas, liver, kidneys, brain. Why do we suffer Alzheimer's? Why do we suffer dementia? Why do we suffer memory loss? All these are problems because of receiving sufficient supply of blood and oxygen. Why does the brain not receive sufficient supply of oxygen? Is because the blood flow has reduced. Why has the blood flow reduced? Because the arteries and veins in the brain are also clogged. And this is true in the kidneys, this is true in the pancreas, this is true in the liver, this is true in the muscles, this is true in the entire spinal cord. Wherever your body receives blood, your blood is now in short supply. The choked arteries and veins, and therefore organ failure starts. What is this organ failure? Many of us have had elderly relatives admitted to hospitals in their last stages in life, and suddenly one day the doctor or the nurse comes and says organ failure has set in. Meaning what? Urine output has gone down, kidneys have started malfunctioning, blood pressure has started dropping, heart has started malfunctioning, the brain is not responding, your family member is unable to recognize many people easily or quickly. So all the organs are slowly shutting down, and eventually one day the person dies because organs have failed. Organs failed because of poor blood supply because of choked arteries and veins, choked arteries and veins because of unburned impurities because of low oxygen because of poor breathing. So this is the cycle of breath. Having talked physically, now let's talk about the mind. I'm returning home from a late night movie, and on a deserted road I see three tough looking characters walking towards me. So I am a poor simple pharmacist, and I realize that I am in danger. So I have two options. One is either I fight these people if they act funny with me, or I run away from them. Now I am not a karate champion that I will fight with them. So obviously my option is to run away. Instantly I need energy to run away. Where do I get this instant energy from? I get this instant energy in the form of increased blood supply. How do I get this increased blood supply? My heart has to pump faster than normal. My heartbeat has gone higher when I sensed danger. My response to stress is my increased heartbeat. What makes my heart beat faster? There is a hormone in my body called adrenaline. In presence of danger, when I become aware of danger, my body releases this hormone in the blood called adrenaline, and the adrenaline interacts with my heart muscles, and my heart muscles start pumping faster. My heart beats faster, and instead of 72 beats per minute, my heart is now beating at 85 beats per minute. I'm living in a moment of stress. Because my heart is now beating fast, blood is sent to my arms and legs. If I'm ready to fight, more energy is in my arms because of more supply of blood. And if I'm ready to run, more energy is in my legs because I'm ready to run. Because of the blood supply, extra blood supply in my leg muscles. So, the response to this stressful situation is adrenaline, and it enables me to run away quickly from the danger. Now, what is the significance of this example with our day-to-day life? Look at each one of us. From the time we wake up in the morning, life is stressful. We are stressed at home because there are common items that we share with our family members, like the bathroom, the breakfast table, the time, the attention, and we are competing with each other to catch our time. I have to reach office at a particular time. My daughter has to reach college at a particular time. My son has to go to school at a particular time. My wife has to manage all these people in the house. There might be some elderly person in the house. So there is a constant competition for each other's time and resources. And therefore there is stress within the family and the household. Then there is stress on the road. The stress of traffic, the stress of delays, the stress of irritating officials whom I meet in the process of travel. Then there is stress in the office. Clients, customers, suppliers, bosses, colleagues, juniors, seniors. Then I come back through the same trauma of traffic and the same household clashes, and my life is full of stress from the time I wake up till the time I sleep. Response to stress biologically is always adrenaline. The body knows only one response. Whenever you are stressed for whatever reason, body will release adrenaline. That adrenaline is setting my heart pumping faster. So imagine that my heart is pumping faster continuously throughout the day. So instead of operating at 72 beats per minute, it is operating at 85, 90 beats per minute, which means I am overworking my heart than its normal design. Its normal design is 72 beats per minute, but I am at 85 or 90 beats per minute. So obviously there is a fatigue factor that is building into the muscles. My heart is not designed for a continuous operation at that level. And therefore, my heart starts giving a response. And what is the response? The response will come in the form of a pain in the left side of my body, from the chest to my wrist, or it can be a dizzy sensation in my head, or it can be sweating, profuse sweating. And then I know that something is wrong. So I go to the doctor, he takes my pulse reading and he says, "Oh my God, your pulse is racing." So he takes my blood pressure and he says, "It's 160 by 100. It should have been 120/80 or 110/70. So he gives me a pill, 25 milligrams, reduce your blood pressure. I'm happy, I take the prescription, I take the medicine, I feel nice. But did that pill reduce the stress in my life? No, the stress continues. Did that pill reduce the blockages in my arteries and veins? No, the impurities are still there in the arteries and veins. So whether it is a physical cause or a mental cause, the cause of my heart condition has not changed because of that 25 milligrams. But I feel symptomatic relief. I feel nice about it. For 2 years, my body has digested that 25 milligrams per day. On a daily basis, I am a cardiac patient now. After 2 years, my body starts showing the same symptoms, either because of my physical blockage or because of my mental stress. I go back to the same doctor and he increases my dose to 50 milligrams because he realizes 25 milligrams has stopped working for me. Now that 50 milligrams has started working for me. Now again, I feel nice for a couple of years and then the symptoms recur. I go back to the doctor and he says, we will have to do angiography. So I do angiography and I discover there are 4 blocks in my heart and he advises angioplasty. So I do angioplasty, but angioplasty will neither remove blocks from all over my body, they will remove blocks from my heart. They will not remove blocks from my brain, they will not remove blocks from my leg muscles because arteries and veins are choking everywhere, not only in the heart. So because my heart is showing cardiac symptoms, the stents are introduced in my heart and I feel nice about it. Another 4 or 5 years and I then go back to the doctor with the same symptoms and he says bypass. So I do a bypass surgery and again I feel happy for a couple of years and then the symptoms recur, go to the doctor and he says bye-bye. After bypass I can't do anything. Maybe a heart transplant. So in this entire process, I have spent money on doctors, hospitals, and medicines. So all of you who have been working hard and doing some intelligent investments for return on investments to provide for your future, you are actually working for doctors and hospitals. You are not actually working for yourself. You think the money is for you. No, it is not for you. It is for your cardiologist, it is for your oncologist, it is for your diabetologist, it is for all these people and the various hospitals that you patronize. So your 40, 50 years of working life for these people, making them rich. Instead of that, if you could save this money by taking care of your health through simple techniques of breathing and meditation, that would save you a lot of money. If you put into calculation the amount of money that you have spent on yourself throughout your life, you will realize that there is a huge chunk which you earned through hard work only to make somebody else rich. So coming back to our point of stress, the supply is adrenaline, which leads to a cardiac condition, which leads to drug therapy, and then it gives you only symptomatic relief because it has not addressed the root cause. You have not addressed the root cause at the physical level of the blockage of arteries and veins. You have not addressed the root cause of your mental stress. If you address these 2 root causes, you will be free from a lot of diseases. 70 to 80% of your diseases will vanish if you address these 2 root causes. You will not need medicines. You will not need to spend the amount of money that you are spending on medicines. How to heal the body and the mind? Breathing exercises and meditation. Breathing exercises to improve your oxygen intake, to improve your blood purification, to improve the condition of your arteries and veins, to improve the disposal of impurities, to improve the supply of nutrition. And meditation to improve the quality of your mind, so that you are not under stress. So these are the 2 techniques that we will teach you. There is a third component in your body which is prana or spirit. Prana or prana energy is a subtle life force. It exists everywhere and you can experience it by doing a simple fingertip experiment. You sit straight and bring your fingertips of both the hands close together. Don't touch the fingertips and slightly move them to and fro or back and forth. And focus on the gap between the fingertips and you will feel some tingling sensation or a magnetic pull without even touching the fingertips. What is that tingling sensation? What is that magnetic pull? That is prana shakti or life force which is exuding itself through the terminals of your fingertips. You can practice this at home and experience it. Prana, like positive and negative aspects. Because for electricity to flow, you need the positive and the negative. Without the positive and the negative, you can't have electricity flowing. For any flow, you need the plus and the minus. Water has to flow from high level to low level to generate hydroelectricity. If water is at a static level, you will not be able to produce hydroelectricity. If energy is not moving, there will be no action. And you want your life to be in action, you want energy to flow. So you need to charge the positive and the negative. And that positive and the negative element comes to you through two nostrils. One hole in your nose could have done the job of inhalation and exhalation because you don't do inhalation and exhalation simultaneously. When you inhale, you are not exhaling. And when you exhale, you are not inhaling. So one hole in the nose would have done the job, but the universe provided you with two holes. Why two holes? Because the positive, the right side of your nostril is the positive node called the pingla, and the left side of your nostril is the negative node of your breathing apparatus, and that is called the ida. There are two channels of breath, the pingla and the ida, which go alongside your spine, beginning with your nose, the right and the left. And that maintains the potential difference to facilitate the flow of Prana Shakti. We talk about this more in the course. This is just to give you a flavor of what is Prana Shakti. So now we come to the subject proper, the introduction to life and breath. But before I go to this subject, for those of you who joined late, may I request you to put your name, telephone number and email address in the chat so that we can contact you if need be. So please type your name, telephone number and email address in the chat box. You will already see some of you have already written your name, telephone number and address. So I request all of you, especially those who joined late, to put in your name, telephone number and email. An introduction to life and breath, the curriculum. What is taught in life and breath? Pranayam, the basic breathing technique. 8 spiritual breathing exercises, technique of meditation, laws of living, totally 20 sessions, each session of 1.5 hours, 1 session per day. We will meet every Sunday from 11 to 12:30 beginning next Sunday. Each session is of 1.5 hours. You will have 20 such sessions in which you will be taught 8 exercises for breath plus pranayam, and you will be taught technique of meditation, and you will be taught laws of living. Now you will be wondering what is a law of living. So I will give you just a small example of law of living. All of you, can you sit straight? Can you all sit straight? And just follow my instructions. Take a deep breath and exhale. Take one more deep breath. Don't exhale. Take another deep breath. Don't exhale. Take another deep breath. Don't exhale. Can you do it continuously without exhaling? It's not possible. You have to exhale if you have to inhale. So this is a simple law of life. Unless you give out things, you cannot take things. Unless you empty the container, you cannot fill the container. So you want to fill your life with goodies, you have to learn to give out goodies to the universe. So there are some 13, 14 laws of living which will be taught in this course. Give and take is one such simple law of life. Yeah. Where did it all begin? It began in Nalanda University about 1,200 years ago. So basically this is an indigenous, original Indian science. Unfortunately, Nalanda University was destroyed by invaders. The man who discovered this science ran away to Tibet carrying his knowledge, settled in the Tibetan monastery and taught the Tibetan monks this beautiful science. Where did it disappear for all these years? Before the Mughal invasion to Tibet, subsequently to USA. How did it go to USA? One Britisher by the name of Edwin John Dingle happened to land up in Tibet and was trained in this science by the Tibetan monks. He settled in California and started the Institute of Mental Physics. He acquired the Tibetan name of Guru Ding Le Mi. Edwin John Dingle became Ding Le Me, and he started the Institute of Mental Physics in California. As late as 1977, one person in Chembur, Mumbai, K.S. Ramanathan, he got to hear of this science and he acquired the entire course by postal correspondence. 1977, there was no email or those quick transfer facilities. So he acquired this entire course by postal correspondence, and in a very small way, he started teaching this science in his residence under the name of Brahma Vidya. Two students of his, one was Justice Dudhat and the other was Jayant Divekar, who was Vice President Aditya Birla Group. They branched off and started their own separate institutes, one under the name of Brahma Vidya Mission, Justice Dudhat, and Brahma Vidya Sadhak Sangh, Jayant Divekar. And that's how this knowledge got propagated. I learned Brahma Vidya in the Sadhak Sangh, and then I branched off in 2017 and started this institute called Pratibimb Charitable Trust. So the original science is from mental physics, which is brought to you, but the origin of mental physics is Nalanda University, India. Where is the Center of Life and Breath in India? Registered offices in MIDC, Andheri East, Mumbai, Maharashtra. I showed you in the slide right at the beginning. When did it return to India? In the year 1977. When can anyone learn life and breath? Anytime after the age of 18. There is no upper age limit. When does one begin a course in life and breath? At predetermined times published by the organizers. This particular batch, 09, which is an online batch, will begin on 20th September, next Sunday at 11 a.m. 1.5 hours per session and 20 sessions. Who started life and breath? Guru Padma Sambhav 1200 years ago in Nalanda University. Guru Dingle Me, a Britisher who took it to the US. Guru Jyotirmayanand, K.S. Ramanathan came to be known as Guru Jyotirmayanand later on, and he propagated this in Mumbai from 1977 onwards. Who conducts life and breath in India? Pratibimb Charitable Trust, established in 2018. Who teaches life and breath? Teachers qualified by the Pratibimb Charitable Trust. Teachers are selfless volunteers. All the fees that you pay us is used for charitable work. Especially when we are doing online courses, the money that we collect is used entirely for charitable work. When we do physical courses in the classrooms, some of the money is used for paying the rent, and some of the money is paid for printing the books that are given to you in classroom classes. Who can undertake the life and breath courses? Anyone above 18 years. There is no bar for any religion, sex, or community. This course does not talk about any particular religion. It talks about the human being, human body, human mind, and human prana shakti. It doesn't matter what religion you belong to. You have a body, you have a mind, and you have prana shakti inside you. How is life and breath taught? One lesson per session, each lesson 1.5 hours. Each lesson is given out in a printed PDF format. 20 weeks for the basic course. Voluntary study groups are organized so that you have a daily practice of the breathing exercises and meditation. How much does the basic course cost you? Only rupees 1,500 per person for the entire course of 20 sessions. So which is hardly 3 pizzas. But we accept only rupees and not pizzas. So payment can be done online through our website by registering through the register button. All those details are there in the flyers that you must have seen. Benefits: health, success, and happiness. What is the proof of benefits? I don't know if some of my past students are attending this session. If they are and if they can share, I would invite them. Otherwise, I will share some of the benefits that my students have gained from this course. Anybody would like to share?
Sir, there are 2 students. One is Sushma Surekha and one is Vineet Talreja. They will like to share their experience.
Okay, Sushma, go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sushma Surekha from Mumbai. I was introduced to this course at 2018. Since I'm a very creative person, I started getting spondylitis. I went to the doctor, and the usual route I took. The doctor was actually disgusted with the severity of my spondylitis, and he told me if I don't take care, it will eventually lead to a operation. So then one of my friends introduced me to this course. I jumped at the opportunity, and now I'm practicing it regularly, and my spondylitis has just gone. Within a few days, I can say it had gone. So I have made this a pattern of my living. I would suggest everyone to join this course, because no institute teaches you how to breathe. I'm really thankful. I cannot be thankful enough to the teacher, to my instructor, and to Pratibim Trust, because I have been cured of my pain. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Sushma. Vinny, please go ahead. Is Vinny around?
Yes. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is Vinny here. I had been introduced to this course by my Jijaji Suresh Ahuja, and I'm very thankful for it, because I actually wanted to do it since I've heard a lot from Suresh Jijaji and from Vidisha, and I was quite keen on it. But then when they started in this lockdown online course, so I jumped to the opportunity. It was the first batch that I attended, and it was an amazing learning for me, because it did not only help me physically, but it helped me mentally also to think more positively. And it has helped my aches and pains. They have nearly gone. It has helped me lose weight, which is a very good thing for me. And my aches and pains, weight loss, and more creative thinking and more positive thinking is all what has been a big change for me in my life, because my backache was a real severe problem. And because of that, I used to have less energy in my body. Now I feel even more energetic than what I used to feel otherwise. So it has been an extremely very valuable learning for me, and I practice it regularly, no matter what, because that is what keeps my energy fully boosted, and physically, mentally, and spiritually, I feel very good on the whole. So I thank Praveen sir for it, and all the ones who are giving us practice, Usha ma'am and everybody who is working so hard to give us practice every day, that we do perfectly and we gain our health back completely. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm really in gratitude to all of you all.
Thank you, Vinny. Thanks for sharing, both of you, Sushma and Vinny. So,
Sir, Sunita here. Can I share my experience with you from this course?
Yeah, but make it brief. Yeah, people would like to leave.
So it's a very small one. Just I've been doing your basic course 2 times, and I'm doing regular breathing and exercises and meditation. And I'll just tell you that I had a slight lump in my right breast. With breathing exercise, meditation, and creative breath, I have realized I have no pain in that breast. There is no lump in my breast, which I just recently discovered. I just felt suddenly that there is no pain. And I just realized it is because of all these breathing exercises, my meditation, my creative breath, which has helped me to overcome that issue of my body. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for sharing, Sunita. That was great. That is absolutely fabulous. You are now free of that tension. So, this course is essentially magic. But the magic can only be experienced by practice. No magician can make magic without practice. So, you will only understand this magic by practicing. Those students who have been practicing have already shared their magic in their life. You want magic in your life, you will have to join this course. Take down these numbers: Suresh, Naresh, Shruti. Shruti is in the US, so you'll have to add 1 there, plus 1585. So in case you have some members from US who would like to join, Shruti is the person to contact there. So you can take these numbers and contact them. If you have any questions, I will be very happy to answer your questions. Guidelines I will discuss once you join the course. I will discuss the guidelines. Any questions, please feel free to ask. If anyone has any question, please feel free to ask.
Sir,
Yes, go ahead.
hello, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
हाँ सर, ये पूरा इंग्लिश में होगा कि हिंदी गुजराती में भी अवेलेबल है?
ये कोर्स अभी फिलहाल तो सिर्फ इंग्लिश में अवेलेबल है.
ओके.
Praveen ji.
जी.
Sir, if I may ask.
जी हाँ, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Anuj here. And sir, if I miss one of the sessions in between, how do
Good question. You get a printed booklet in the form of PDF files. All lessons are in printed form. That is one part of the story. Secondly, we form a WhatsApp group on which all the exercises are sent to you in a video form. So basically you miss nothing. All that you will miss is my examples which I give during the class. But as far as breathing and meditation is concerned, you will miss nothing.
Thank you, sir.
Most welcome.
Praveen ji.
Haji.
I'm Arun from Nagpur.
Right.
Compliments for a wonderful introduction. First of all, this is the first time I've been introduced to your presentation. I think it was really nicely done for a layman and layperson also. One question that I have is for COPD patients, who are above 60, your courses would make a good difference. I'm not saying that it will go away completely, but do you think this is going to be very helpful for COPD patients?
You are probably already aware that there are no cures for COPD.
Right.
Right. In the regular medical field, there are no cures.
Yes.
This is the only hope for lung disease patients.
Right.
And this is the only most powerful tool available for lung disease patients. This is originally designed for asthmatics. It started as a respiratory ailment cure for people. But then after looking at the several benefits that people derive, then the ambit has expanded.
Right. Right. So we can.
I personally have benefited from this course. I had extremely bad arthritic knees, terribly swollen and painful 15 years ago. I had given up transportation, public transportation. I couldn't bend my knees and enter into a train or a bus. Today, the same person 15 years later is doing 110 sit-ups every day. I do 110 sit-ups every day with the same knees, no pain.
And how young are you, please, sir?
I am physically I am 65 running.
Wonderful. My age.
Sir, I have one question. Like you said that this course is only for 18 years above.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're saying it's very good for asthmatic patients. So
Yes.
if a kid has asthma, about 9-10-year-old, like my son, he is asthmatic. So any techniques of this I can apply to him in spite of this course being above 18 years? If I can learn and apply.
You need to learn it. You need to learn it properly and you need to practice it daily. And then watching a kid can normally pick up a lot of things.
Okay, sure. So it's not that it's not meant for them. They can do it, but
it's not harmful. It's not harmful. We have a child's course which teaches only breathing exercises, but the response is so poor that it's not worth conducting that course.
Okay, all right.
Interested in Bollywood dancing and karate.
Right.
People are not interested in this. But if you learn the breathing exercises and practice them daily, you will be able to impart that knowledge to your child.
That's right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm Mukund. I'm from Hyderabad.
Mukundji.
I just have a query. See, when you say 20 sessions, what I want to know is whether see the session what you do on 20th of September, does it mean that what you do on that day is what we will be practicing during the week from Monday to Saturday? Is it that way?
That's right. That's right. Because
And what you do on 27th will be followed, will be done in the following week, which means that what we do on 20th also gets continued in the following week?
Yes, it's an add-on. Like
Add-on. Is that okay?
Like I said, we'll teach you pranayam plus 8 breathing exercises. So you will be doing, ultimately by the end of 18 lessons, you will be doing all 9 breathing exercises.
I see. Okay. Got it.
Plus there are modules of meditation added on. So it's an add-on. It's a build-up from lesson to lesson to lesson to lesson. As your understanding improves, you will appreciate the value of the subsequent lessons.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Praveen.
Most welcome.
Praveen ji?
Haji.
Yeah, I'm Priyanka from Pune. And I have, actually my age is 39. And I have chondromalacia patella in my both knees.
Okay.
So doctor suggested me not bend knees और नीचे बैठने के लिए भी अभी फिलहाल मना किया है. But अभी बहुत सारा काफी ठीक हो गया मुझे. Only little bit pain होता है काफी देर खड़ा होने के बाद. So is it possible अगर आपके कुछ exercise है जिसमें कुछ नीचे बैठना हो तो कुछ other option मुझे कर सकते?
मैं आपको नीचे बिठाऊंगा ही नहीं, आपको कुर्सी पे बिठाऊंगा.
Okay. और ये problem भी क्योर है इसमें breathing exercise and all?
6 महीने के बाद आप आके बोलेंगी कि मेरे नीज क्योर हो गए.
Okay. और ये मुझे जो हुआ था वो मैंने एक्चुअली शायद जिम में कुछ गलत पोस्चर किया था या कंटिन्यू लॉन्ग सिटिंग प्रेशर उससे आ गया था.
हो गया ना, आपको ठीक होना है ना.
यस,
बस यही बोलना, मुझे ठीक होना है, बात खत्म.
ओके, थैंक यू.
मोस्ट वेलकम.
सर
जी.
सर पराग here.
Yes, Parag.
It is always pleasure learning from you, sir. And
thank you so much.
I would also like to tell that the energy level what I had before this course and after getting into the course has been tremendous different, and it's all thanks to you, sir. Thank you, sir.
It's thanks to the course, not to me.
Sir, for your teaching and the course, sir.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks, Parag.
Sir, just a small request I had.
Sorry, your voice is gone. Your voice is gone.
There are many friends of mine who had referred this course, but some of them want a recording and some of them have missed to attend today. So can we get this introduction course recording?
My introduction is on YouTube.
Okay, fine, sir.
You can just type my name there and you will get my introduction. It is a recording of October 2000 and, if I'm not mistaken, 16 or 17.
Ji.
It will be under the name of Life and Breath.
Fair enough, sir.
So you can watch that entirely. Whatever I said today is there entirely in that recording.
Great, sir.
So if people have missed attending to, no harm done. They can, new people can join up to lesson number 3. So if your relatives and friends have missed today, they can come next week and they can still bring people week after next and week after next. Up to lesson 3, we take new admissions.
Ji. Thank you.
Not to worry.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Most welcome.
Mr. Praveen, do we register through the website or do we need to call one of these numbers?
If you are finding it difficult to the website, then call. Otherwise, you can register through the website.
Through the website. All right. Thank you.
Most welcome. Any other questions?
Hello.
Ji.
Myself, Dr. Yashodhara Bhosle. I had a query that yesterday itself my brother has been got discharged after suffering from COVID.
Okay.
Will he be able to attend the session which are going to present in the next Sunday?
Depends on the severity of his breathing condition.
It was from moderate to severe. The last score was 9/40. And now he has taken the whole medications and he's home now, 10 days quarantine.
Yeah, so he's able to breathe regularly without any...
He is able to breathe very, very less while talking. A mild breathlessness is there, not much.
Then he can do it. Not an issue. last 2 years before I have checked my uterus, so they will detect this. So I have treatment and to do my ovary is a little bit almost finished. So please suggest me exercise or meditation. Please join the course. There is no particular exercise for a particular disease. It's a holistic package. All the breaths together work towards improving your overall health condition. So I can only suggest that you please join the course and take the benefit of the entire package. Any other question? So if we are done, can I take your leave? And I hope to see you all next week, 20th Sunday, 11 a.m.